The afternoon sun filtered through the pine trees in broken patterns, casting shadows across the forest floor. Maya Chen walked the familiar trail with her 7-year-old son, Owen, their weekly hike through the state park that bordered their small town. At 31, Maya worked 2 jobs to support them both. Mornings at a medical clinic as a receptionist, evenings waitressing at the diner. These Sunday hikes were their sacred time together. Just the 2 of them. Owen ran ahead on the trail, his blue hoodie bright against the muted greens and browns of the forest. Maya followed at a slower pace, grateful for the quiet and the fresh air, a respite from the constant worry about bills and groceries and Owen's growing feet that seemed to need new shoes every 3 months. "Mom! Mom, come quick!" Owen's voice carried back through the trees, urgent and frightened. Maya's heart jumped. She ran toward his voice, scenarios flashing through her mind, a snake, an injury, a dangerous animal. She found Owen standing off the trail, staring at the ground, his face pale. "What is it, honey?" she asked, pulling him close. Owen pointed. "Mom, there's someone there." "In the ground." Maya looked where he indicated and felt her blood run cold. What she'd initially thought was just disturbed earth and forest debris was actually a shallow grave, and protruding from the dirt was a hand, fingers barely visible, moving slightly. Someone was buried alive. "Owen, stay back," Maya commanded, her voice sharp with fear and adrenaline. She dropped to her knees and began digging frantically with her hands, pushing away loose soil and leaves. "Can you hear me?" she called. "I'm going to get you out." A muffled sound came from beneath the earth. Someone was alive down there, conscious. Maya dug faster, her nails breaking, her hands bleeding from rocks and roots. Owen stood frozen behind her, eyes wide with shock. Maya uncovered a face, a man, perhaps in his mid-30s, covered in dirt and blood. There was a terrible gash across his forehead, and his dark hair was matted with dried blood. He gasped for air as she cleared the soil from his nose and mouth. "Owen, get my phone from my backpack," Maya said, forcing calm into her voice. "Call 911. Tell them we're on the Pine Ridge Trail, about 2 miles in from the north entrance. Tell them someone's hurt badly." Her son, shaking but brave, did as she asked, while Maya continued digging, trying to free the man's shoulders and chest. He was buried about 2 feet deep, his arms pinned at his sides. As she cleared more dirt, she could see he wore an expensive-looking dark suit, now torn and filthy. "Hang on," Maya said. "Help is coming. Can you tell me your name?" The man's eyes focused on her with difficulty. He tried to speak, but his voice was barely a whisper, damaged from breathing dirt and screaming. Maya leaned closer, her ear near his mouth. "Benjamin," he managed. "Benjamin Hartley." The name meant nothing to Maya. She kept digging, eventually able to pull him partially free. He was weak, barely able to help himself, clearly suffering from injuries beyond what she could see. When she finally dragged him completely out of the shallow grave, he collapsed onto the forest floor, breathing heavily. Owen reported that emergency services were on their way. Maya pulled off her light jacket and covered Benjamin, checking his pulse, looking for other injuries. That's when she noticed his hand. 2 fingers were broken, bent at wrong angles. Torture marks, she realized with horror. This wasn't an accident. Someone had done this to him deliberately. Benjamin's eyes opened again, clearer now. He looked at Maya, then at Owen standing nervously a few feet away, then back at Maya. His expression changed. Recognition of his situation, of his vulnerability, of these strangers who'd saved him. He tried to speak again, and Maya leaned close to hear. "They'll come back," he whispered urgently. "The men who did this, they'll come back to make sure. You need to run, take your son and go. Don't tell anyone about me." "What? No, I can't leave you." "Please." His grip on her arm was surprisingly strong despite his injuries. "They wanted information about my company, about money. I wouldn't tell them. So they buried me, said they'd come back in a few hours to see if I'd changed my mind." He coughed, wincing. They could return any minute. Maya's mind raced. She looked at Owen, who was watching with frightened eyes. The ambulance would take at least 20 minutes to reach them on these trails. If dangerous people were coming back, "Owen, come here," she said firmly. Her son hurried to her side. She looked at Benjamin. "Can you walk at all?" "I don't know. Maybe with help." "Then we're all leaving together. Now." With considerable effort, Maya got Benjamin to his feet, supporting most of his weight. Owen helped as much as his small frame could, staying close to his mother. They moved off the trail into denser forest, putting distance between themselves and the gravesite. They'd gone perhaps 100 yards when Maya heard voices in the distance. Male voices, harsh and efficient, coming from the direction of the trail. "In here," Maya whispered, guiding Benjamin behind a fallen log thick with moss and ferns. Owen scrambled after them. They pressed themselves flat against the earth, Maya covering Owen with her body, Benjamin barely breathing beside them. Two men passed within 20 feet of their hiding place. Maya could hear fragments of their conversation. "Told you we should have just finished him. Boss wanted him to suffer first. If he's dead, we dig him up, make sure, then dump the body somewhere better." The voices faded as the men continued toward the gravesite. Maya waited, counting slowly in her head, her arms wrapped tightly around Owen. Benjamin was shaking beside her, from pain or fear or both. Minutes later, shouting erupted from the direction of the trail. The men had found the empty grave. Curses and angry voices carried through the forest. "They'll search," Benjamin whispered. "They can't let me live now." Maya made a decision. "Owen, remember that old hunting cabin we found last month? The abandoned one?" Owen nodded. "Can you take us there?" "I think so." "Then lead the way. Stay quiet. Stay low." Her 7-year-old son, showing courage beyond his years, began moving through the forest, using game trails and staying in the thickest cover. Maya half-carried, half-dragged Benjamin, who tried his best to keep up despite his injuries. Behind them, they could hear the men searching, spreading out, calling to each other. It took 40 minutes of agonizing progress before Owen spotted the cabin, a dilapidated hunter's shack, mostly collapsed but with one corner still intact. They slipped inside and Maya propped Benjamin against the wall, then pulled out her phone. No signal. They were too deep in the forest now. "I need to get to higher ground to call for help," Maya said. "Owen, you stay here with Mr. Hartley. I'll be back in 10 minutes. "No." Benjamin's voice was stronger now. "Don't leave the boy." "I'll be fine. You both stay here, stay quiet. Those men will give up eventually. They can't search forever." "Who are you?" Maya asked. "Why do people want to hurt you?" Benjamin closed his eyes briefly. "I'm the CEO of Hartley Pharmaceuticals. My family's company. We're worth billions. Someone, I don't know who yet, wants control of it. They kidnapped me 3 days ago, tortured me for access codes, for information. When I wouldn't give it to them, they decided to make it look like I disappeared in the woods. An accident, they'd claim later." Owen was listening with wide eyes. Maya felt sick. They'd stumbled into something much bigger and more dangerous than a simple attack. "My head of security will be looking for me," Benjamin continued. "When I'm found safe, there will be a massive investigation. But right now, we just need to survive until those men give up." They waited in the cabin for hours. The sun began to set, casting long shadows through the broken walls. Owen dozed fitfully against Maya's side while she kept watch. Benjamin drifted in and out of consciousness, his injuries taking their toll. As darkness fell, Maya heard the blessed sound of helicopters overhead. Search and rescue, likely coordinated by Benjamin's company when the emergency call about his location was reported. Flashlights appeared in the forest and voices called out, different voices, professional and urgent. Maya emerged from the cabin cautiously, waving her arms. Within minutes, they were surrounded by security personnel and paramedics. Benjamin was loaded onto a stretcher, immediately receiving medical care. Maya and Owen were wrapped in blankets, given water, asked dozens of questions by serious men in suits. The two attackers were caught trying to flee the park in a stolen vehicle. The investigation that followed revealed an attempted hostile takeover orchestrated by a rival pharmaceutical company, involving kidnapping, torture, and attempted murder. Through all the chaos of interviews and statements and media attention, Maya tried to shield Owen to return to their normal life. But Benjamin Hartley didn't forget the single mother and her brave son who'd saved his life. 2 weeks after the incident, Maya received a visitor at the clinic where she worked. Benjamin, recovered from his injuries, stood in the waiting room in an elegant suit, looking nothing like the broken man she'd pulled from the grave. "I needed to thank you properly," he said. "May I take you and Owen to dinner?" Over dinner at a restaurant far nicer than anywhere Maya usually went, Benjamin explained. "You saved my life, you and your son, when you could have run to, literally. Protect yourselves, you helped a stranger. You risked your own safety." "Anyone would have done the same," Maya said, uncomfortable with his gratitude. "They wouldn't. Most people would have called for help and left. You stayed. You protected me." Benjamin paused. "I'd like to do something for you. For Owen. College funds at minimum. And I'm told you're working 2 jobs. Mr. Hartley, Benjamin, please." He leaned forward. "I've built a company worth billions, but I nearly died alone in the woods. You barely have enough to get by, but you raised a child brave enough to lead us to safety. I think our definitions of wealth might need adjusting." Over the following months, Benjamin became part of their lives. He funded Owen's education from elementary through university. He offered Maya a position at his company, director of patient advocacy, using her medical clinic experience to improve how the company treated the people who needed their medicines. The pay was more than her 2 jobs combined had ever provided. But more than the money, more than the career, Benjamin offered friendship. He'd been a widower for 5 years, buried in work, isolated by wealth. Maya had been struggling alone, buried under financial stress, isolated by necessity. They'd saved each other in more ways than one. 2 years after that day in the forest, Benjamin proposed to Maya on the same hiking trail where they'd met. Owen, now 9, stood beside him, holding the ring box with solemn importance. "I was buried alive and you dug me out," Benjamin said simply. "You brought me back to life in every way that matters. Will you marry me?" Maya said yes, tears streaming down her face. Not because he was wealthy, not because he could provide security, but because he'd shown her that being seen, being valued, being loved was the greatest treasure of all. At their wedding, Benjamin told the story to their assembled guests, how a single mother and her son had refused to leave a stranger to die, had risked everything to help someone they didn't know, how that moment of compassion had changed all 3 of their lives forever. "Maya dug me out of the ground," he concluded. "But more than that, she dug me out of a life where money mattered more than people, where success was measured in stock prices instead of human connection. She and Owen reminded me what's actually valuable. Not what you have, but who you are when someone needs help." Years later, Owen would tell people that his mom was the bravest person he'd ever known. She saved a man's life in the forest and he turned out to be really rich, but she would have done it anyway, even if he was poor. That's who she is. And Maya would say that Benjamin saved her right back, not from death, but from a life where she'd forgotten she deserved more than just survival, where she'd stopped believing in possibilities beyond the next paycheck. Because that's what happens when we choose compassion over caution, when we help instead of walking away. We don't just save lives, we change them, including our own. We discover that the most valuable things in life are the ones we freely give. Courage, kindness, the willingness to dig someone out of the darkness no matter the cost. Sometimes,